For most persons, seeing a survey plan or making payments for a property means that they are safe as far as that transaction is concerned. But that is a very big lie in real estate, right? As a business lawyer and a property lawyer, I've come across persons or individuals who have either lost their property or are currently at the verge of losing their property. Not necessarily because they didn't make payment for the property, no, but because they made mistakes that could have been easily avoided. And that's why in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 7 common mistakes that Nigerians make when buying land in Nigeria and how to avoid them. Now, the first mistake I'll be going into is making payments without a written agreement. Now, like I said earlier in the introduction, the fact that you made payment or that you saw a survey plan does not mean that you are secured as far as that transaction is concerned, especially if you are the one paying for a property. In law, a survey plan is not recognized as a proof of title. The fact that you have a lot of survey plans lying around your parlor or around your file does not mean that the property that you bought is secured or is necessarily your own. And the fact that you have a payment receipt, it is not evidence that you are the actual owner of that property. I mean, come to think of it, we have cases, and I'm sure you are even aware of cases where people have bought property or sellers have sold property to more than one person, right? So in a situation where more than one persons are showing a receipt as proof of property or proof of purchase of property, it still doesn't settle the issue of who now owns the property. So how do you secure yourself? That tells you that there is more to be done after making payments or even having a survey plan. And that's the one other thing you need to do is to have a written agreement. So after making payments and having a survey plan, ensure that before you make payments or while making payments, that there is a written agreement in place, right, that is going to be signed by all parties concerned in the transaction. Which brings me to my second point. Another mistake that land buyers in Nigeria make when it comes to buying a property in Nigeria is delaying to have the agreement signed. So apart from having the agreement written, drafted, and ready for signatures, I've seen situations where agreements have been prepared, but the buyer has not signed, the seller has not signed. And for whatever reason best known to them, we don't know why that delay is happening. But you see, the more there is a delay when it comes to signing the agreement, the more you pose or you put your ownership stake at risk as a buyer of that property. Anything can happen. God forbid the seller dies. Who will sign that agreement, right? Or God forbid the witnesses to that transaction are no more at reach. What happens to your transaction? So it's important, as soon as you are making payment, the agreement is ready, and also ensure that signing or signatures as it concerns this agreement is done immediately, right? So that is a mistake that most land buyers in Nigeria make, and it should be avoided at all costs if you are making plans or you're currently at the stage or process of buying or purchasing a property, a landed property in Nigeria. The third mistake that most I see buyers make or land buyers make when it comes to purchasing a property in Nigeria is not conducting a proper search on the said property. There is a reason why running a search, or what we refer to as due diligence, is important when it comes to buying a property. Conducting a proper search on the property helps you know or gives you clarity on who is the actual owner of that property, and in other words, advises you on who you should be dealing with if you intend to buy that property. I shared a video some time ago on how to buy land in Nigeria, and I recall that in that video I mentioned that there are certain persons, depending on the kind of scenario that comes into play, that the law recognizes that as mandatory or yes, mandatory or necessary parties to a property transaction. For instance, if you're buying a community land, right, there are certain persons that must be included in that transaction, and their signatures must be in the agreement that follows that transaction. Otherwise, the law would not recognize that transaction. And if those people stand up tomorrow to object to the sale of that property, the law will not oppose it, right? If it is a family land, there is a qualification of who and who must be involved in that transaction, right? So it's important that you do your due diligence. And this is where having a lawyer comes in. You need the services of a lawyer to do the proper due diligence and advise you on whether or not to proceed with a property transaction. So please ensure that once you spot a property you're interested in, right, ensure that you speak with your lawyer to carry out the necessary investigations or due diligence search to ascertain whether or not you should be proceeding with that property transaction. The fourth mistake that I see property owners make when it comes to buying property or land in Nigeria is paying in cash or without evidence. Come on, it's 2025. You should have a bank account and your payment shouldn't be processed in cash. The reason why we usually, or I advise my clients to do a transfer, is that it helps keep a trail, right? It helps in the event that there is a dispute when it comes to, okay, payment of property, whether or not you paid. The bank account or the bank records, right, will show that money left your account and actually went to the person who was actually selling that property. So please, by all means, there should be no reason why you should be buying a property and paying in cash. Go to the bank and make a transfer. If you want to do a bank draft, whatever, but so long as that transaction has a receipt that shows that money left your account and went to the account of the seller, that will protect your interest, especially when it comes to the issue of whether or not payment was made, right? And the fifth mistake that Nigerians make when it comes to buying property, that by the time you watch this video, you should take note of and avoid, is failing to perfect title. Now, when we talk about perfecting title, it simply means having that property registered with the designated government agency, depending on what state the property you are buying is located in, right? So, in the video I made mention of, that is how to buy land in Nigeria. Please check somewhere in this channel. That video is on our Lex-Praxis channel, right? I talked about the various in that video I explained in detail the various stages or phases of buying land and what is expected in each of these phases, right? And I talked about the stage of perfecting title. So perfection of title or having the property registered comes usually after the signature, the agreement has been signed and documents has exchanged and payment has been made. Now you are now the official owner of that property. The next thing you should be doing is to have that property registered. Now, why is it important that you have your property registered or that you perfect the title of that property? It's because in law, where a dispute arises with regards to ownership of that property, the law recognizes the person who has a certificate of occupancy or evidence of registration of the said property with the relevant authorities. So having your property registered, even in the first place, prevents the issue of resale of the property without your consent. And then in the event that maybe a resale was done even without your consent and there is a dispute that has arisen in that situation, the person who has a C of O in this case will be recognized in law as the rightful owner of the property, right? Because of course the government cannot give a C of O to two persons with regards to the same property, right? Because of course a search is done, a thorough background check is done before the C of O is even issued in the first place. So you see why perfecting title to the property in question is very important. Now the sixth point or the sixth mistake that buyers make when it comes to buying property in Nigeria is ignoring boundary and possession issues, right? I've seen situations where people bought properties and they left that property They didn't do anything on that property. They didn't even build anything. It was not fenced, not farmed or something. Like that is a very risky thing to do. Yes, you have the survey plan. Yes, you've paid. Yes, you've signed an agreement. But for the purpose, it's very, very important that you establish your physical presence in that property. Even if you're not ready to live there yet, at least clear the place, make a fence, put up a fence, even if it's a mini fence, farm on the land or something, hire someone to farm for you, or just do something that will make everyone around that property to know that this property belongs to you, right? It's not enough to just have agreements. Demonstrate ownership. And do you know that in law, a person who stays in a property for a long period of time, of up to say 20 years, can be recognized as the owner of the land? Yes, that means it's possible for a so-called squatter who is not even paying anything to you to stay in your land for more than 20 years and also contest ownership of that property with you. So these are risky things that some people expose their lands to that can be easily avoided in the first place. Even if there is someone staying in your property and you want that person to stay for free, have some kind of arrangement that establishes that this person is not staying, there as an owner. Even if the person is paying 1 naira or something, but just to demonstrate that this person is not staying on his own accord because it is his property or her property, right? So I think I've flogged on that point and you've been able to get the message. So once you pay for a property and you have your survey, you have your agreement and all, ensure that you exercise possession by doing whatever you need to do to show that you have physically occupied the space in question, right? And that brings me to my last but not the least point, which is not involving a lawyer early. Most people, 90% of people that I come across, they just assume that, okay, it is only when they ask for the land agreement that they now call a lawyer. But that is a very wrong notion to have. You need a lawyer from the first time you have cited a property and you have demonstrated interest in buying that property. You need to speak with a lawyer to guide you through that transaction and protect your interest as it concerns acquiring that property as a buyer. A lawyer helps you with conducting a proper search, due diligence, to ascertain whether or not the person you're actually speaking with is even the actual person you should be speaking with as a seller, right? A lawyer will help you with also preparing the necessary documents, right? If it is drafting the agreement or even reviewing the agreement that has been already been prepared, right? And advising your lawyer will help to advise you, generally speaking, on how to go about the transaction. A lawyer will also help you when it comes to having the property registered with the necessary government authority of the state where the property is located. So you need a lawyer at every phase from the onset, right? So it's important that you secure the services of a lawyer to protect your property. The money that you're going to pay a lawyer during a property transaction, I can assure you, is much, much affordable than the money you're going to pay to a lawyer when you're trying to reclaim your property, or the property is now in dispute. Ownership of the property is now comes to question. So try as much as possible to avoid unnecessary exposure to risks, unnecessary loss, and unnecessary expenses that can easily be avoided by securing the services of a property lawyer. Now, there you have it. 7 common mistakes that Nigerians make when it comes to buying land, and I've also explained how to avoid these mistakes. I hope you got value from this video. If you did, please feel free to like this video, share it to anybody you believe will benefit from this, and also leave a comment in the comment section. And if you have a question, you can leave them in the comment section, or if you would like to ask a private question, you want to speak with us directly, please reach out to us through any of the contact information displayed on the screen, and we will gladly respond to you.